He said it himself, on his own stream, in front of his own chat. It's me. It's my fault. And then he laughed. Not the laugh of a man who lost an argument. The laugh of a man who realized, mid-call, midstream, mid-pregnancy, that the woman carrying his fourth child just outmaneuvered him in front of 4,000 strangers. By agreeing with him. By going limp. By saying you're right. Until the fight had nowhere left to land. 8 weeks and 6 days. That's the countdown she keeps repeating like a hostage in a Hallmark movie. And he keeps swatting it away like a fly. And here's the thing about that laugh. Go back and listen to it again. It's not a clean laugh. It's a two-stage laugh. There's the first half, which is the reflexive chuckle of a man who thinks he just landed a punchline. And then there's the second half, which is shorter, quieter, and lands about half a second after his eyes move off the camera. That second laugh is the tell. That's the laugh of somebody recalculating in real time. Because somewhere between it's me and it's my fault. He heard himself say it out loud to 4,000 people on a platform that archives every second of his stream, with a girlfriend on the other end of the line who, for the first time in this entire relationship, wasn't fighting back. And a man who spent his entire career picking fights only knows what to do when somebody swings back. The moment they stop swinging, he's standing in the middle of the ring with his hands up and nobody to hit. Hold up. Y'all gotta see how this one really played out, because the clips going around only show you the loudest 90 seconds. The actual story is in the parts everybody's already scrolling past. Smash that subscribe, tap the bell, and lock in. What you're about to hear about this polygraph isn't on any other timeline. By the way, if you're new around here, this is where we sit with the messy stuff a little longer than everybody else. Welcome. Here's the bones. On June 20th, 2026, Blueface, government name Jonathan Porter, was live on Kick. He's been booted off Twitch permanently since early May, allegedly for a slur and a dual stream violation per XXL Mag, when chat informed him that his pregnant girlfriend, Nevaeh Akira, had quietly gone off and taken a polygraph in Indiana, by herself, booked the examiner, signed the consent form, posted the PDF to TikTok and Instagram, picked up almost immediately by the Shade Room on IG, then waited for him to find out from his own viewers, which he did, because he'd been ignoring her texts. Let that sit for a beat, because if you've ever watched one of these arcs unfold in real time, you know the standard script. Girlfriend gets accused. Girlfriend cries on camera. Girlfriend demands proof of his fidelity. Girlfriend storms off. Girlfriend comes back. Rinse, repeat, tip, goal hit. That's the formula. That's the loop the audience pays for. What Nevaeh did broke the loop. She didn't cry on camera. She didn't demand he take a test too. She didn't even tell him she was doing it. She just got in a car, drove across multiple state lines, sat in a stranger's office in Indiana, hooked herself up to a machine, and let the paperwork do the talking. According to her own follow-up posts reviewed by gossip aggregators, she paid for the examination out of pocket. No GoFundMe. No tip me to take the test stream. No co-host. Just her, a friend named Macy, and an examiner named John. That's not how the format is supposed to work. And he knows it. You can see him trying to drag the moment back into the format throughout the stream. Calling her, putting her on speakerphone, reading the questions out loud, polling chat. All of it is an attempt to convert a private act back into public content. The problem is, the private act already happened. The footage is already in the can. He's not creating content. He's reacting to content somebody else produced about him, on his beat, in his lane. And reactors lose every time to originators. Ask anybody who's ever made a Reddit thread about a YouTuber. Now watch how the rest unspools. Straight from the man's mouth, unfiltered. The way he said it. She has been texting me, but I just been ignoring her. Just sitting with that one for a second. His pregnant, 8 weeks and 6 days out, by her own count, and his texts are on read. Cool. Normal. And just to anchor what 8 weeks and 6 days actually means in medical terms, because the chat kept flying past this number like it was a phone bill. By her own count, she's at 31 weeks and 1 day of pregnancy at the time of that stream. Counting backward from the August 19th due date, she's been repeating. That's deep third trimester. That's the part of pregnancy where obstetric guidance, per multiple OBGYN sources public-facing on places, recommends reduced stress, monitored blood pressure, and avoidance of acute emotional triggers because of elevated preeclampsia risk, which makes the ignore her texts and let her find out from chat approach not just rude. It's medically reckless. But sure, Cheetos. Then this gem, also his, also live. To be honest, chat, I think she's trying to prove it to you guys, not me. Real talk, that's actually a sharp read. Dishonest, but sharp. He's basically conceding the test was performance, which would be a fair critique if he wasn't the one who built the stage she's performing on. And this is the moment, by the way, where the whole architecture of the bit cracks open if you're paying attention. Because if she's performing for chat, not him, then chat is now the actual relationship. Chat is the audience whose approval matters. Chat is the third party in the marriage. And he is, at best, a co-host of his own girlfriend's redemption arc. He spent 2 years training his audience to be the judge, jury, and tip jar for every interpersonal moment in his life. And now that same audience is the one she's performing for instead of him. He built that stage. He sold tickets to it. He cannot now be mad that the show goes on without him in the lead role. A fan in chat dropped a $10 TDS that hit harder than half the headlines. You directly asked her to wait and take the test so you can ask the questions. Why would you fail questions you ask yourself? She's still not listening. His response? Yeah, that's a good point. But it's all right. Just cuss her out, and we'll try again. Okay, pause on the structure of that response, because this is one of those throwaway sentences that tells you the entire operating system. Cuss her out, and we'll try again. That's not a man in a fight. That's a producer giving a director's note. He's not even pretending the conflict is organic at this point. The fan said something smart. The smart thing implicates him. So he pivots to the talent, the her in question, and instructs the audience to escalate, so the format can reset. We'll try again means we'll run the bit one more time. The bit is the relationship. The bit is the polygraph. The bit is everything. Then there's the moment chat read out a viewer message saying the test was likely inaccurate during pregnancy. He didn't even argue the science. He just said, I did a pregnant lie detector test with already, and it was accurate. Which is, scientifically, not how that works, but we'll come back to that. And the line that's going to haunt this whole arc, from the actual phone call, Nevaeh, mid-fight, said, I deserve peace for 8 weeks. He responded, you don't deserve. Lay on your back all day. Eat Cheetos. Wild. I want to camp on the Cheetos line for a beat, because it's going to get clipped and reclipped for the next month, and most of those clips will miss what makes it grim. Reread it. You don't deserve. Full stop. He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't say, you don't deserve peace, or you don't deserve to relax. He just says, you don't deserve. Period. And then pivots to mocking her physical posture and her snack preferences. The grammatical incompleteness is the whole tell. In his head, the sentence is already finished. You don't deserve anything. The Cheetos line is a distraction from the part of the sentence he didn't say out loud, and the audience laughed along. Because that's the bit. Now connect the dots, because the order matters more than anybody's letting on. February 22nd, 2026, Blueface and Nevaeh announced the pregnancy on a Twitch livestream, roughly 30 days into the public relationship per WKX coverage. 30 days. Let that math do its own work. Run that math a little longer, actually. 30 days from public confirmation to a pregnancy announcement means the actual conception, biologically, happened either before they were publicly a couple, or in the first week or 2 of the public relationship. Either way, the timeline doesn't allow for what most people think of as a getting-to-know-you phase. There's no version of this where they vetted each other. There's no version where they discussed kids. There's no version where they aligned on values, finances, custody preferences, or even basic medical history. The relationship and the pregnancy are functionally simultaneous, which is, let's just say it, a hell of a way to start a content arc and call it a love story. Early May, he's permabanned from Twitch, per XXL coverage shared via Facebook, migrates to Kick, where moderation is famously looser and the TDS tips fund the entire ecosystem. Worth noting what Kick actually is, for anyone who hasn't been forced into the platform discourse yet. Kick launched in late 2022, openly positioned itself as the anti-Twitch with a 95-5 revenue split, favoring creators per its own publicly stated terms, and quickly became the landing pad for streamers who'd been banned, suspended, or sidelined elsewhere. The platform has been linked in reporting to gambling sponsorships and looser community guidelines, which makes it an obvious fit for high-conflict content. Blueface migration to Kick wasn't a lateral move. It was a business decision to relocate to a venue where the financial incentives reward exactly the kind of content Twitch was penalizing him for. The platform didn't make him this way, but the platform absolutely subsidizes him staying this way. Late May, Jaden Alexis, the OG baby mama, 2 kids deep, starts demanding $10,000 per month in child support, or she's taking him to court. Per a YouTube clip dated around May 26, 2026, he responds by handing his 9-year-old son, Javon, $11,000 in cash directly, on camera, just to skip her, per coverage from the Shade Room. And the visual of the Javon moment matters, because this is the kind of clip that aggregator pages love and child psychologists flinch at. A 9-year-old, on camera, handed a stack of cash that's larger than what most adults in his audience see in a month. The framing was a flex. The undercurrent was a legal maneuver. If the money goes to the kid directly, it complicates the case for, I'm not supporting my children. Whether or not that's legally durable is a question for a family law attorney. Whether or not it's a healthy thing to do to a child whose name is now permanently associated with that footage is a question for somebody else entirely. June 3rd, he admits on stream he doesn't get STD tested because his pregnant girlfriend gets tested for both of them. Surfaced in posts on threads and aggregator pages, including Noir Online. Mid-June, the Bible pillows. Nevaeh announces, via King Leah Harris, his mom, that the pillows are arriving June 16th. Today is, well, by the date this stream went up, past it. They never arrived. Or did. Nobody knows. He shrugged. She lied. They're still on the way probably. The Bible pillows are going to be one of those weirdly memorable footnotes in this whole saga, by the way. On the surface, it's a small thing, a merch drop, religious-themed product, a delivery date that slipped. But look at who delivered the announcement. King Leah Harris, his mother. Which means at some point, an adult woman with her own platform agreed to be the public-facing voice for a product launch tied to her son's pregnant girlfriend on a religious-themed item for an audience that was already hostile to that girlfriend. That's not a delivery delay. That's a multi-generational PR maneuver that didn't land. And the she lied response, without specifying about what, by how much, or whether he'd actually checked, is a tell-all its own. It's the lazy version of an answer from a man who hadn't thought the bit through past the announcement. June 20th, Nevaeh, allegedly tired of the comments, drives to Indiana with her friend Macy, gets a polygraph from an examiner named John, posts the PDF showing no significant reaction indicated on 4 questions. June 23rd, he reads the questions live for the first time and goes feral. Here's what I keep circling back to though. Actually, hold on. Back up. The thing nobody's catching is the Indiana part. Why Indiana? He lives in LA. She allegedly lives with him part-time. Indiana is where her family is, which means this trip was planned, booked, driven to, sat through, paid for, and he found out about all of it from a 12-year-old in his chat named Blue Schools 124. That's not a girlfriend trying to prove it to chat. That's a girlfriend who has stopped using him as an audience entirely. And the Indiana detail keeps unfolding the longer you sit with it. Indiana isn't a convenience destination from Los Angeles. There's no direct flight from LAX that gets you to a polygraph examiner's office without a connection. The drive, if she actually drove, as the post suggests, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 to 32 hours each way depending on route. That's not a road trip you take on a whim at 31 weeks pregnant. That's a logistics operation, which means somewhere in her phone, there's screenshots of a route, a hotel booking, an examiner appointment confirmation, and a goodbye text she probably sent and he definitely didn't read. The very existence of that paper trail is the evidence, not the polygraph itself. The polygraph is the souvenir. The paper trail is the receipt. 3 things in this whole saga that nobody's zooming in on. The phrasing of question 2. Since November 1st, 2025, have you had with anyone besides Jonathan Porter? He read it and physically cringed. And he was right too. Because November 1st is, by his own count, 2 days before he was released from prison on November 3rd. Meaning the question is constructed to give her a 48-hour wiggle room that doesn't actually clear her of anything that matters. He clocked it. He just couldn't articulate why without admitting he knew the exact release date down to the hour. And the fact that he knew the exact release date down to the hour is its own data point. Because if he's that confident on the calendar, then so is she. Which means the November 1st cutoff wasn't an examiner's random choice. It was negotiated, either by her, by the examiner under her instructions, or by some prior conversation between them that we're not seeing. Polygraph questions, per multiple examiner trade association guidelines, are written in collaboration with the subject in a pretest interview, where the examiner walks through every question, clarifies wording, and confirms the subject understands what they're answering, which means Nevaeh sat through that interview, heard since November 1st, and said okay. She picked that date, or she let it stand. Either way, the 48-hour window isn't an accident. It's a feature. The polygraph science. Here's the part the nurse in his chat tried to tell him before he ran her off. The American Psychological Association is on record, saying there's little evidence polygraphs reliably detect lies at all, per APA.org's published position. Independent studies put false positive rates as high as 50% in some conditions, per peer-reviewed work indexed on NIH/PMC. Pregnancy specifically isn't well studied, but heart rate variability, blood pressure swings, and elevated cortisol, all standard in the third trimester, are exactly the physiological markers polygraphs measure. A no significant reaction indicated result on a 36-week pregnant woman is statistically closer to a coin flip than a verdict. Both of them are arguing about the wrong thing. To stretch this out a half-inch further, polygraph results have been broadly inadmissible in U.S. federal court since the Supreme Court's 1998 ruling in United States v. Sheffer, which upheld military rules barring polygraph evidence on the grounds that, quote, there is simply no consensus that polygraph evidence is reliable. That's not me. That's the highest court in the country, on record, more than 2 decades ago, telling everybody these things are not reliable enough to bet a verdict on. So when a man is treating a TikTok-uploaded polygraph PDF as either ironclad proof or ironclad fraud, he's not having a debate about his girlfriend. He's having a debate with the legal reality of the document, and losing on both sides simultaneously. The polygraph can't convict her. The polygraph can't exonerate her. The polygraph is, functionally, a piece of theater paper, which is, ironically, exactly the right format for the show they're both starring in, The Solar Moment. When he got the kid, Superior, on the phone and asked, your mama had another man around you? And the kid said yes, and then someone in the background, allegedly Nevaeh, screamed, I'ma beat your, shut your mouth. Blueface immediately backpedaled. He's a kid. I'm not going to take his word for value. Which is wild because 2 minutes earlier he was treating chat's TDS donations as gospel. The kid said the thing that confirmed his theory, and he let it go. That's not a man hunting for truth. That's a man who already knows the truth, and is performing the search for the cameras. Pile one more observation on this, because it matters. The moment he disqualifies the child's testimony, he disqualifies the entire investigation, because every other piece of evidence he's working with in this saga is at least as flimsy. Chat tips, anonymous strangers, anonymous DMs, unverifiable, body language reads off a live stream, subjective. The kid was, ironically, the closest thing to a primary source he had access to, and he threw the source out the moment the source said the thing he didn't want filed under fact. Which means we've now established, by his own framework, that he doesn't actually want a verdict. He wants the trial. The trial is the show. A verdict ends the show. The Shade Room ran with the Jaden congratulates Blueface and Nevaeh angle via TSR TikTok, framing this as a wholesome blended family moment, which, come on. Capital XDRA went straight news anchor mode. Blueface announces 4th baby, with new girlfriend. Cold. Clinical. No editorial. And then there's the IG comment section economy, the Blue Rock Tea pages, the gossip aggregators, running with "she paid for her own polygraph because she's tired," surfaced via Facebook/BlueRockT, which sounds sympathetic until you notice how it strips out every part where she might have benefited from the chaos too. And the way these three outlets carved up the same story tells you something about how this genre actually works. The Shade Room's job is to manufacture social feed harmony. The everyone's friends hit the heart button framing, because that framing maximizes shares without alienating any side. Capital XDRA's job is to look respectable while still publishing a story whose only news value is the count of his children. The aggregator page's job is to launder fancam sentiment into something that looks like reporting. Three completely different incentives. Three completely different versions of the same week. None of them lying exactly. All of them shaping, which is how rumor becomes record in 2026. Not by anybody making things up, but by everybody choosing which true thing to leave out. The loudest countertake floating around. She trapped him. She planned this. She's a groupie who wanted a rapper baby and ran the playbook. That's the chat consensus on his own stream, by the way. He repeats it back like scripture. And listen, I'll steelman it for one beat. There's a non-zero version of this, where a young woman saw a window, walked through it, and is now navigating the consequences with the only tool she has, which is the same camera he uses against her. That's not nothing. That's a real read. But here's where it falls apart. If she trapped him, why is she the one driving to Indiana to clear her name? Trappers don't audit themselves. Trappers don't pay for polygraphs. Trappers don't sit on a phone call eating verbal jabs and whisper, "I deserve peace." The "she trapped him" framing only works if you assume she's playing 4D chess. The footage suggests she's playing checkers and losing pieces in real time. Which brings us to the part nobody on the timeline wants to say out loud. Everybody's debating whether Nevaeh is pregnant by him or by somebody else. Wrong question. The real one is, who designed this entire content cycle, and who's getting paid for it? Flip the lens. This isn't a relationship. This is a content factory with a baby attached. Think about the architecture for a second. Kick pays streamers based on watch time and tip volume. Blueface lost Twitch, his biggest platform, in May. His Kick numbers depend entirely on drama. Drama requires a co-star. Jaden Alexis has been the co-star for years. She's now in open contract dispute, demanding $10,000 per month she'll probably get, per coverage circulating on Facebook and gossip outlets like All About the Tea. Cryptix Rock's basically tapped out, especially after that prenatal paternity test from 2023 confirmed he's the father of Cryptix Jr. and made the "Is It Mine" arc legally dead. He needed a new co-star. Enter Nevaeh. 30-day relationship to pregnancy announcement. Pregnancy announcement on a live stream. Gender reveal on a live stream. Picked up by the Shade Room. Public arguments on a live stream. Polygraph drama feeding 2 news cycles. Bible pillows. Allegedly the King Harris lookalike joke that triggered an entire side beef. Every single beat is content, and the beats are, if you map them out on a calendar, evenly spaced. Watch the pacing. February announcement. March-April. The cute couple arc. May, band and migration. June, paternity drama. July, presumably the Did the Polygraph Lie arc. August, birth. September, postpartum content. October, November, next arc, possibly already precast. That's not a relationship's natural cadence. That's a release schedule. Streaming services do this. So do reality shows. So do soap operas. The closest analog to what Blueface is running isn't a relationship. It's an FX limited series with a renewal option, where every 6 to 8 weeks you need a new act break to keep the audience subscribed. And here's where it gets dark. He keeps saying, "I'm the final boss. God sent these to me." Read that out loud. Slowly. That's not a man in a relationship. That's a man who has built an entire spiritual framework around monetizing women's worst moments. He calls himself a credit auditor. He calls them his houses, his cars. He literally said, "This is a meal ticket, not a Nobel Prize." Whose meal ticket, though? Hers? Or the one the Kick algorithm rewards every time she calls in crying? The mainstream read is Blueface is a toxic baby daddy with too many baby mamas. That's lazy. That's the People magazine version. Here's the sharper read. He's a small business owner. The business is conflict as content. The women are unpaid co-founders. The kids are equity. And every time someone in chat asks why he doesn't just settle down with one of them, Angela, the high school sweetheart with no kids and a real job, he balks. Because Angela has no content value. Angela can't generate a Tuesday night $400 TDS war. Y'all hearing me? He doesn't want a stable partner. A stable partner kills the show. The whole bit only works if the women are perpetually destabilized, perpetually proving themselves, perpetually one tip goal away from a public phone call. And the most quietly devastating part, Nevaeh, 8 weeks and 6 days from giving birth, drove to a different state, alone except for a friend named Macy, to take a test that doesn't legally mean anything, scientifically can't be trusted in her condition, and emotionally was never going to land with the one person she wanted to land with, because that person was, by his own admission, ignoring her texts. She's not crazy. She's not a manipulator. She's not a 4D chess master. She's just lonely. On camera. For an audience that's monetizing her loneliness. A small, ugly thought. And to sit 1 extra second on the word lonely. Because this is the part the chat will not let her have. Lonely is the diagnosis that breaks the format. If you let lonely in, you can't laugh at the polygraph anymore. You can't dunk on the Cheetos line. You can't crown the final boss. You have to look at a 31 weeks pregnant woman who drove across the country to a stranger's office to take a test she didn't legally need, scientifically couldn't trust, and emotionally was never going to win. And you have to admit that the entertainment value of this whole arc has been priced in human terms the whole time. The audience doesn't want to pay that price. So the audience calls her a groupie. It's cheaper. It keeps the format moving. It keeps the next tip in the queue. And it lets everybody, from the chat to the host to the aggregators too. Yeah, even the people watching this video right now, pretend that the show is a show, and not what shows actually are, which is people. Watch how the next 8 weeks play out, because the cascade is already loaded. The path most likely to land. She has the baby on or around August 19th. He shows up. Maybe. Films it. Definitely. The clip goes viral. He hits a new Kick subscriber peak. Then 6 to 10 weeks postpartum, when she's not photogenic, not stream ready, not generating tip wars. The texts go unanswered again. By Halloween, expect a new, alleged baby mama arc. The chat will eat it. The cycle resets. The path that flips the table. Jaden's $10,000 per month child support demand actually hits a courtroom. Discovery requires income disclosure. Income disclosure includes Kick revenue, tour revenue, and critically, any joint accounts. Once a judge sees the actual numbers, the "I made them too rich" defense collapses on contact. Don't be shocked when a settlement quietly happens before any of it becomes public record. That's the path that ends the show, not the relationship. And there's a third path that's not getting talked about enough, which is the platform path. Kick has, throughout 2025 and into 2026, had its own running PR problem with gambling sponsorships, advertiser pullback, and intermittent threats from credit card processors to reassess their relationship with the platform. If any of those pressures escalate, and they have, on at least 2 prior occasions per public reporting, then suddenly the financial subsidy for high-conflict relationship content goes thinner. When the subsidy thins, the cast list trims. When the cast list trims, the women he can afford to keep on the call sheet get fewer. And the thing about content arcs is, they don't die because the audience leaves. They die because the host can't afford the production anymore. The platform path is the slowest one. It's also the most likely to actually end the format. The aftershock, 5 years out. This is the one nobody's talking about. 3 boys, Javon, Krazian Jr., Superior, and 1 baby girl on the way. All old enough by 2031 to type their own names into YouTube and watch their parents fight for tip money. Krazian Jr. already has a TikTok adjacent to his mom's. Javon just got handed $11,000 on camera at age 9. The next generation of this content cycle isn't a hypothetical. It's an inheritance. And once that hits, once one of these kids, at 14, drops their first interview about what it was like growing up like this, the entire genre this man built has its first reckoning. Not from a journalist. From his own bloodline. He won't see it coming. because he's still convinced he's the final boss. The final boss never sees the credits roll. The opposition, meaning Nevaeh, Jaden, every woman who tried to win by playing the format, they don't lose because they're not smart enough. They lose because they keep showing up to a game whose only winning move is not playing. A quiet thought to end on. 8 weeks and 6 days. She kept saying it like it was a finish line. It's a start line. She just doesn't know yet. If you sat with the whole thing, appreciate y'all. Drop your take in the comments. Tell me who you think actually wins this one in 5 years, and hit subscribe so the next breakdown lands in your feed the second it drops. We're not done with this one. Not even close.